Welcome back to the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I am so excited to have our guest, Kim Brenneman, on today. I have been reading her book on home management and just got, well, you guys know I get excited about systems and organization of the home. And even though here I feel like we focus more on meal prep and mealtime, in order to make mealtime happen and to have this, organized, happy family meal going on, there's a broader picture of home management and home organization that also has to be playing to make this all happen. So that's one of the reasons I asked Kim to come on today to share more about that. Before we get into the interview, Kim, why don't you just share a little bit about you and your background?
Okay, well, I'm Kim Brenneman, and I live in Iowa on a farm 10 miles from anything. I've always grown up in agriculture, and my husband and I have been married almost 33 years. We have 9 children. The oldest is 32 and the youngest is 16. When I was first married, I realized that I knew how to do a lot of things, but I didn't have good systems in place. And I was used to school where I was with the same age people every day, all day, from kindergarten on. And my days were full with school and school activities, college, same kind of thing. I never had to really be the boss of my life. Other systems were the boss of my life. So then when I was independent, then I had to create systems, and I didn't know that. So I struggled for a while on what to do, when to do it, why is my life a mess, that kind of thing, especially when we started having children. And yeah, so that was a lot of what the book is about, what I wrote about, and what it started with a blog, was me writing down the things I was learning and why I was doing it, how I was doing it, just the different systems I was putting into place into my daily life. And we homeschooled. So that added a whole different dynamic to it too. The kids were home all day.
Well, and that's so interesting because I find, so my background, I started out as a personal chef. And when I was first starting, I would go into people's homes and do cooking lessons. And I found so many people as they were growing up, they didn't learn how to cook necessarily.
Yeah.
And I think that's so similar to home management. Like that's in the systems that you're talking about. People, this isn't something everyone learns growing up. Now, I know you're working to change that with your family. I certainly am trying to as well with my children and, make sure some of this is passed down and all of that. But for a lot of my listeners, I know that they were probably like me. Like I didn't learn all of that. Some of it I did, but it wasn't intentional really. And I have had to learn a lot of that as I go. So let's get into that a little bit. Where do you recommend people start if they're relating to this? I mean, I feel like I need some systems and I don't have them.
Yeah. Well, what I teach is morning and evening routines first, because a strong evening routine helps create a good morning. Whether you're leaving the house and your kids are leaving the house and all of that really early, or if you're just trying to get going in the day and all of a sudden it's, this happened to me when it'd be 2:00 in the afternoon and I'd realize, I didn't eat anything and I didn't, and what am I wearing? That kind of thing, because you're just busy with little children as soon as you wake up. Well, even if you have little children, you can still create a routine that involves them and helping them learn a morning routine too from the get-go. But that starts the evening before, having a strong evening routine, an order of events that start at a general time and end at a general time, when you get the kids in bed and get yourself in bed.
So what does your evening routine look like?
Well, I have 2 routines. You'll appreciate this. One is I call the kitchen routine. Okay. I have a morning and evening kitchen routine. So kitchen routine, it's all going to be really personalized to the people. Do you have sourdough and you need to feed your sourdough? Or do you drink coffee in the morning and you want to get your coffee pot loaded up the night before? That kind of thing. Knowing ahead what's going to happen the next day. Getting things cleared away in your kitchen, everything, ready, because nobody wants to walk into a kitchen that's a mess. no matter what meal you're going to be preparing next, it's really disheartening to walk in and see, oh, there's the mess from the last meal. This is no fun. I don't think I want to do this right now. So, I mean, it can be this never ending cycle. So getting that taken care of in the evening is part of the kitchen routine. And then personal evening routine, that's what you're doing with your kids, reading a story, singing a song, making sure they go to the potty, brush your teeth, say your prayers, all that things, those things you do with your kids to help them know, oh, it's time to go to bed now. And you can do that with little babies and on up. If they grow up knowing this is what we do every evening, then it becomes easier, not starting cold with someone who's, 5 years old and has been running the roost for 5 years, So it's easier to start when they're little. And then the same thing for yourself. What do you do to wind down? And and that depends on the season and how old your babies are or your children, if you have older children. And let's talk about older children. All what I have left in my house is teenagers. And we have those teenager activities going on in the evening. Like tonight, I know we're going to go to a wrestling tournament and not get back till probably 9 o'clock at least, maybe 10, maybe later. So then what's a bare bones routine that I like to do when I go to bed or when I go up to my room? And it's, let's see, what is my bare bones? Wash my face. And I like to read a little bit to relax. Doesn't matter what time of night I go to bed, unless it's super duper late, but I like to read. And might only be like 5 minutes, but I just kind of need that wind down. I'm going to lay in my bed and I'm going to read a little bit. But it's going to be different every night. If I have more time, then yeah, I'm going to have a longer routine. There were years where my routine was a 15-minute bath in the evening, just because the day was so stressful. I needed to really spend some concerted effort in decompressing. So I have this routine of I put the kids to bed and told my husband, if anyone's up and about, you're taking care of it. This is time for me to wind down. And I would light candles and get a book and take a little bath and then go to bed. I don't know. It's going to be different and personalized for everybody, what it takes to have that wind down time. But yeah, so having that on each end of the day is where I would start. And then next, mealtime routines, because they're pillars in the day, breakfast, lunch, supper. If you have like an afternoon snack time, kids come home from school or kids have been working, whatever. If your dinner's late, if you have your evening meal at 5:30, it's not a big deal, but because we farm and a lot of the year they're out doing chores and working until it's, getting close to dark, we might not eat till 7 or 8. So then the little children need to eat earlier, of course. So we would have like pretty substantial healthy snack late in the afternoon and then a meal later. And so those are pillars in the day. And then also an afternoon chore time. You can have chore time any time of day, but we would have an afternoon chore time every single day. And that's a pillar because if you have that, no matter who's in the house, little children can help clean. Just a time in the day where you're straightening up, doing some vacuuming and dusting of the dirtiest room in your house or floors, that kind of thing. And picking up toys.
Yeah,
those are pillars during the day.
I like the idea of the chore time that you talked about because I feel like that's something that like kind of ends up happening for me, but I don't have a set time. And I think with kids, the more you can have a routine and a schedule, they'll follow suit and not question it. And so I've enjoyed trying to incorporate that and have it be something we all do together and like, hey, this is just what we do instead of, oh yeah, I should start tidying and just kind of doing it randomly. And so I just really like the idea of this regular rhythm of like, okay, these are the times in the day where we kind of pause and recalibrate.
Yes. And with kids, I would like change the music in the house. Music is a really good way to set the tone. So like we would have music going when we were doing school that was like no words, just like, I don't know, there's like classical music that's supposed to be like good for your brain and good for study and that kind of thing. So we would a lot of times have that going on during school time. And then, other music we would play at different times, depending on what kind of energy I wanted. if they're like being noisy and rambunctious and it's winter and I'm like going crazy,
Yeah.
that would put on something real calm and soothing. And the whole atmosphere of the house would just like, whoo, calm down. But for afternoon chore time, a certain playlist is really helpful. Something upbeat and something that says to their brains, okay, it's time to do chores now. And I would say, time to do chores. Just do a certain order of events that happen during the times of year where they're out and about. And because like I said, we live on a farm and they were free range kids. So I had a bell out the back door, and I'd ring that bell for meal times and ring it for afternoon chore times. That is the only time anyone could ever ring that bell. It's still a rule at our house to teach grandchildren
that. I need to borrow that one.
Yeah, it was super useful. And they knew because they could hear that bell from anywhere on the farm. So there was no excuse. They can say, I didn't hear you yelling, Mom. But if I'm ringing that bell, they know it's time to come to the house, and there was no excuse. Yeah. So setting the tone for the afternoon chore time. And then each kid has a set of chores and a room or an area of the house where they were responsible for straightening up and cleaning and, that kind of thing, age appropriate. And I had a lot of kids, so we would buddy up, and a team maybe would clean. An appropriately chose team, because there's some kids that get along great and some that don't. So just personalities. And that also would change with ages, so I had kids that were just like best friends, worst enemies for a few years, both at the same time. And then they wanted nothing to do with each other, and then they're friends again, so choose your teams carefully so that the work gets done. You don't have to work on character training all the time. There's times of the day where you can just like be real efficient. Okay, this is what we're doing at 4:00, and these people who work together right now are working together. And
well, and I'd like to talk even more about that. So I do talk a lot about getting kids involved with mealtime and meal prep, but I don't talk as much about household activities that kids can be involved in. So give some examples of maybe some household chores and what age groups that you found they're appropriate for.
Yeah. Well, feather dusters are really helpful for cleaning.
Yep.
And they're fun. So if you get a quality one with ostrich feathers, it actually picks up. Teach them to not touch the feathers, because then their skin oils get on the feathers and that makes them not work as well. And so they would have fun with feather dusters. And I'd have a couple of them. They'd have to take turns, the different teams would. So that made it fun. And I don't know, everybody has fun with a feather duster, but preschoolers can use a feather duster, get one with a short handle. But I should back up a little bit for that. Make sure your house is kid appropriate. Don't have stuff around that you don't want children to mess with or to break. Just let's be smart and let's help your own self out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's that, and then kid-sized tools, and you can find them on the internet. You even could way back in the day. Well, I'd have to order them out of catalogs a long time ago. But yeah, there's kid-size appropriate tools, and a lot of times you can even with vacuuming, you can use a shorter wand or make it doesn't have to be long. So that was helpful. Those kind of tools were helpful. Preschoolers can sweep. Here's the thing. You don't need to have high standards for the day-to-day cleaning. When it comes around to Friday and you want a really good cleaning, if you want a really good cleaning, then either hire someone or do it yourself. But teach them to do quality cleaning, but don't get too hung up on it. Yeah,
I think when they're younger, at least with cooking, I always looking at it as it's an investment now that later on you'll really see, it pay off. But for now, it's a fun family time, and I keep the expectations low. That's a good
yes, and have fun. Make it fun. Talk, laugh, joke. Dance with the music.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Just keep moving. Be encouraging and say thank you and give encouraging words. All the time, because everybody likes to be thanked.
Yeah,
and everyone likes to be encouraged. So do that with your kids. Don't be mean about it, or they won't want to do it. They won't want to be with you. So be encouraging and say thank you for the work that they did.
Yes.
It's really, really helpful.
It does go a lot way. And I do find that then, once they kind of start to feel that acknowledgement and that pride, and they know that they were seen, and then it just kind of,
Yes.
it keeps going.
It does.
Great. Well, let's go into a little bit of more on mealtime and what are some ways that you help that to be, something that you look forward to in a time that you and your family can really connect?
Yeah. Well, I like to cook, and I'm kind of a foodie. And my mom and my grandma both involved me in cooking. Maybe not as much as I did because I homeschooled and my mom didn't.
Yeah.
And I wasn't with my grandma all the time. But when I was at my grandma's house, if I wanted to help in the kitchen, if I wanted to be with her and do what she was doing, she incorporated me into that. And same with my mom. But like I said earlier, I was in school all day, every day. And then there was after school activities. So there was, there was a little bit of lack there.
Yeah.
But I like to cook, and I always involve the kids. And I do this with my grandkids too now when they come over. They love to come and cook with grandma, which is fun. I just pull up chairs, and if, they start fighting, we put a chair on one side and a chair on the other side, and just incorporate them into what you're doing. Now with little preschoolers, little ones, toddlers, it's hard to make recipes and cook in the kitchen when you have little ones that are also asking for attention. So what I did was I would have like tubs or baskets with activities for them to do only in the kitchen. And they would be at the table, and I would use beans or rice or things like that, and just transfer activities, so give them little different kinds of spoons, slotted spoons, big spoons, little spoons, pouring utensils that are kid size, different sizes, and they would be busy for a long time doing that kind of thing. So that's what I would pull out when I wanted to be in the kitchen, and little ones were like asking for a lot of attention. And then as I get older, just involve them with everything. Because I had so many children.
Yeah.
At some point in time, I assigned each kid a day of the week. And that was their day that they could choose the recipes that they wanted to make. They had to let me know ahead of time so we could make sure we had ingredients on hand. I'm talking like elementary, upper elementary, that kind of thing. Even the junior high and high school kids, that was their day. Because otherwise they all might want to be in there cooking and hands in, and that's too many people in the kitchen. So, so we had assigned days, and then that person was my kitchen helper. And so they're learning what we're making, they're learning how to make things, and they also get some special time with mom. So that's how we did that. Once I had so many kids that I was getting outnumbered, and things were getting a little overwhelming, and that was super helpful. And they all like to cook, and they like to make things, and they're all capable in the kitchen because of the years that they did that, and I involved them in the kitchen. The other thing is, are you familiar with Sally Fallon and traditional foods kind of a thing? I was a big fan of hers starting, I don't know, in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And so the kids, here's the thing, my older kids grew up knowing how to ferment and do the sourdough and all those kind of French type things, which really aren't French. They're just old ways.
Yeah, right.
Knowledge that was lost.
My great grandmother did those things.
Yeah. So they grew up knowing it. Well, then here's what I found, because I'm getting back into that because I fell out of it for a while. And part of that, the reason was because I went to nursing school when I was in my 40s and became a nurse midwife. Okay, so I was in school for several years, and I started taking all kinds of shortcuts because I was so busy.
Yeah.
Well, so then I had the last few of my children didn't know these kind of things. So now they're teenagers and they're learning it. And I'm like, why do you not know this? Oh, because back when we were doing it, you were the little people.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're having fun. now with
Uh-huh.
getting back into sourdough and fermenting and kombucha and all that.
No, those are great activities. And I think some of those, it's just like people are, always searching on Pinterest for these like, oh, let me find some kid activities or, there's something you can buy. And I'm like, if you just look in the kitchen, there is
Yeah.
plenty
Yes,
of
you
like
don't have to buy
kid-friendly
anything.
activities that you can, incorporate them in. So I
Yeah.
think
And
that's
they can wash dishes too. I would do that. I would put them at the sink because they love water play.
oh yeah,
Preschoolers love water play.
I have a 4.5-year-old and he loves to help with dishes.
Yes. Yeah. Just
So,
let them wash dishes and they're going to make a mess. But you know what that mess means is that you're just going to be cleaning your kitchen because once they're done and they get down,
yeah.
you just wipe it all up, wipe the floor,
Yeah.
and you've just cleaned,
Yeah.
really fast. You've cleaned your kitchen.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. Well, this is so many great tips here. And I know I could just keep going on and on and on. I've been so inspired by your book. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes, but it has an accompanying workbook as well. So it's a book workbook duo. And I've actually been working through both of those and
Oh, good.
highly recommend it for anyone looking to get more of a handle on these types of things. Why don't you share with listeners how they can find you and what your, anything else that
Yeah.
you have going on?
Yeah. Well, my website is homeplainandsimple.com. And I have a course there called the Blueprint course. And that includes working through the book, has a lot of printables, and there's audio of the chapters and how to put your own home management book together. So I guess we didn't talk about that, but that's okay. Home management book is just it's like your brain outside your body. You can read more about it there. So that's in the course. And then plus there's a community and weekly Zoom calls where you can get coaching in a group setting. Or sometimes it's one-on-one. Depends on how many people show up, I never know.
I've had that too, yes.
Yeah. And and then I'm on Instagram, but not very active. And that's again Home Plain and Simple. Yeah. Yeah. So if you put in Home Plain and Simple, you'll find it all.
Well, thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate your time and appreciate the book. You're so inspiring. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah. All right. Good to meet you. Thanks, Allison.